Hello and welcome back to another video. This is Gina from McGuire. Today I am featuring Wreath Builder cards. These are cards where you use a small image and repeatedly stamp them in a circle to create a wreath or to kind of create images coming out from the center of the card. This is a great way to use up small images or pretty much any images you may have. I'm using a new tool to create these wreaths and it makes it super easy. I think you're going to be blown away by how well it works. Now these products are from Gina K Designs. Gina is the mastermind behind this Wreath Builder stencil set and I cannot believe how well they work. So the Gina K Wreath Builder stencils come with stamps, so it's a combo deal. And there are two stencils in the combo. There's one to use with 3 3/4 inch square paper and one's to use with 4-inch square paper. In today's video, I'm just using the 4-inch square, but it's nice to have the smaller option if you prefer to do that. Now the stencil doesn't look like much here, but wait till you see how it works. Now for this technique, you really do need a stamp positioner. I'm using the MISTI stamping tool. This is something that I've used for a long time and I've always been very happy with. But any kind of stamping tool or stamp positioner will work well with this. Okay, now I mentioned that the stencils also come with some stamps. This is the stamp set that it comes with. This is the Wreath Builder stamp set. You can see there are sentiments that are perfect to stamp inside a circular wreath. There are circles that you can use at the center of your wreath and lots of little images that are perfect for forming that wreath. I'll use these images several times throughout this video. I have lots of examples to show you on how you can use these Wreath Builder products. I will start with kind of a basic card that uses the Wreath Builder products how they're intended, show you a few more examples, and then show some creative ways to use these products. Let's start with this example. I have white cardstock cut to 4 inches by 4 inches square, and I'm putting it right into my stencil. You can see it fits perfectly because the opening is 4 by 4. Next, I'm going to take my first image. I'm using a flower and I'm putting it out towards the outside edge of that white cardstock. You can put it anywhere on this cardstock, but the outer area is best so you can form a large wreath on this square. Now that I've transferred it onto my MISTI door, it's time to stamp. I'll stamp this once and then watch. I'm going to rotate the paper 1 notch. Watch, I'll just shift it. And now you can see that the paper looks like a diamond. I'll go ahead and stamp that again. Then I'll rotate it another notch. And each time I'll stamp and rotate it 1 notch, each time rotating in the same direction. You can see how brilliant this is and how easy it is to form a circular shape of images. Each time you stamp it, rotate it, and stamp it, and rotate it. Now there is that smaller stencil that I showed you before for a smaller piece of paper, but I like this 4-inch one. I think it's perfect to create a 4 by 4 stamped panel, which I'll put onto a 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch card. Now it's time to add another image, and I positioned it right between the flowers that are already there. This time I'm stamping with Peach Bellini. My first flowers were Tomato Soup. Those are inks from Gina K. And here you can see each time I stamp and rotate, and I keep repeating until I've done the full circle. Here I'm putting down 2 leaf images at once, and I'll ink them and stamp them both at the same time. This will save me a little bit of time. So you can put down multiple images and still do the Wreath Builder stencil where you rotate it and stamp it each time. And you can see I'm starting to form a really pretty wreath. So I continued to do this with some other images, and once I was done, I needed to pick a sentiment for the center, but I wasn't sure which one. So I'm doing a little trick I like to do. I just stamp with black ink, any black ink, onto a piece of scrap transparency or packaging, and I hold it over my project and decide if I like it. Once I'm done, I can wipe that clean. It doesn't leave any mark behind, and I know which stamp will work nicely. The one I chose is this Hello Friend that's in the middle of this Gina K Doodles Saying stamp set. This is actually a stamp set that you get for free for spending a certain amount. I think it's like $75 over at Gina K's website. And I really like the sentiments on it. I'll use this a couple times throughout the video. Now remember, my stamp is dirty because I just stamped it with black ink, and I want to position it in the center of my card. So I put down a clean piece of transparency over my stamped wreath while I positioned my Hello Friend sentiment, so I didn't get ink on it until I was ready to stamp. That's another trick that you can do with scrap transparency. Okay, the last thing I did to this was add a few jewels here and there to the wreath. I just felt like it added a lot to it. You could do Nouveau drops or you could leave it flat. I'm using Gina K Connect glue. This is my new favorite adhesive. It comes out of the bottle wonderfully. It dries very secure. I haven't had it get clogged once. I've used this since December, I think it was, and I really like it. It's great for gluing on your gems. And as you see here, I use it to adhere a piece of craft foam behind my stamped panel, and then I add it to my note card. That way I get raised even dimension. I am simply blown away with the results of this. Look how perfect that stamping is, and I had nothing to do with it. It was all thanks to that Wreath Builder stencil. So brilliant. You could use any flower images you have. I think this would be cute with little hearts or other tiny small images. Now this is a 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch card. You can either put this in a 5 by 5 envelope, which I plan to do, and I'll link to the ones that I use, or you can put it in a traditional envelope since it will fit in there. It just will be a little bit short, but either would work great. Okay, now I wanted to show you another super fast card that I created with the Wreath Builder stencil, but this time I didn't use flowers or form a wreath. I instead used sentiments. The sentiment I'm using is from the Gina K Designs Hearts and Flowers kit. Now this stamp set is a part of a large kit that she has, and it's a really great price point. I'm just using that hello sentiment that you see towards the bottom. I thought it was perfect for this card design, but you could use absolutely any sentiment for this as long as it's not too long. Again, I'm starting with a 4 by 4 piece of white cardstock in my Wreath Builder stencil. I've positioned my hello stamp up against the side of the white cardstock. I'm doing it right up to the outer edge so that it'll fit. And I'm going to ink this each time in a different color to form a rainbow. So I'll use 8 different ink colors. Each time I'll stamp and rotate it. Now I find ink cubes are really handy when doing this Wreath Builder since you're stamping a lot of small images. So I just picked 8 Gina K ink cubes and I just stamped around and I have this cool rainbow hello look. In the center I've put a die cut heart with the word friend white heat embossed. Very simple. I've done videos in the past showing how to make images kind of come out from the center like this, and I'll link to those videos at the end of this one. But you can see how this Wreath Builder stencil makes it very quick and easy. On a completely different look, I have this kitty cat card. I have a lot of friends who have cats, so I thought this would definitely be one that I could use often. This is the Gina K Frisky Felines stamp set. In fact, I believe Gina's daughter designed this stamp set, and I think it's just so much fun. A lot of great sentiments. I'm positioning my cardstock in my little stencil here, and I am just stamping one of the paw prints around the cardstock using a pale pink ink each time. This goes very quickly. Once I've gone all the way around, I'm going to reposition that paw print to kind of be inside of the other ones, and I will repeat the process. You could see how making a few of these cards would be pretty quick to do once you have it set up. Just have a few 4 by 4 inch pieces of cardstock ready to go, and you can stamp them all pretty quickly. So I went ahead and stamped a cat and colored it with Copic markers very quickly and cut him out. And I put him right in the center of all those paw prints and stamped Love You next to it. I think this just shows you that you can use pretty much any stamps to create a really cool effect with the Wreath Builder stencil. Okay, my next example shows just another way you can use these stamped wreaths. So I went ahead and created a 4 by 4 inch wreath, kind of like the one that I created at the beginning of this video. But then I cut it in half at 2 inches, so I end up with 2 pieces that are 2 by 4. I'm going to glue one to the top of a card and one to the bottom. So this card is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Now right in the center, I'm going to adhere a piece of white craft foam just for some even dimension. You could use foam tape if you wanted to, but you can see how easy and fast it is to glue this down using that Gina K Connect glue. Here I have a large sentiment strip where I white heat embossed a sentiment from the Wreath Builder stamp set that I showed you earlier. I'm trimming off the edges. Then I added 2 very thin white cardstock strip finishing touches to the top and bottom of that sentiment strip. So here I took my square wreath and kind of stretched it out to make it look like an oval wreath to get a different look from it. Okay, next I wanted to show you a few ways to incorporate masking in with creating these wreaths. So for this one, you can see the heart at the center of the wreath. So I die cut a heart from some masking paper. You could use a Post-it note if you wanted to, and I put it in the center of a 4x4 inch piece of white cardstock. Now I am going to create a wreath on this exactly how I did before, but this time I'm going to create a rainbow of flowers. So each time I stamp it in a different color and rotate it. But I'm pretty much ignoring the fact that there is a heart mask in the center, and I'm just going to create my wreath as I normally would. Now when I'm creating kind of a rainbow of stamping like that, I'm not real careful to clean my stamp off in between each stamping. It's okay if a little bit of the ink blends with the next color, because that helps with that rainbow effect. Okay, so here I'm filling in as much as I can with some green leaves. When you mask a center area, you want to make sure you stamp a lot over that masked edge so that when you remove the mask, you have a defined shape. So there you can see the final results. I did lots of flowers and leaves on it. And then I just stamped the Hello Friend in the center and added that onto a 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 black note card. I'll use a white gel pen to write a message on the inside of this one. And I also added colorful gemstones to the flowers just for some added shine. So you could mask any shape in the center. You could do a circle, a square, but I think the heart is a fun touch. Okay, my next example shows another way to use masking along with the Wreath Builder stencil. For this one, I'm going to stamp one flower repeatedly in a rainbow. This flower is from the Gina K Designs Stippled Flowers stamp set. This is a beautiful scent with gorgeous sentiments, but I'm just going to use the one main flower up there on the top right. So first I need to start by creating a flower mask. So I'll stamp that flower onto a full sticky Post-it note. This is a very inexpensive way to do masking. These full sticky Post-it notes are great. I'm going to take 4 of the Post-it notes at once and cut them all out. That way I'll have 4 flower masks ready to go for all the cards that I'm going to do today. Now here I'm putting the flower hanging off of the card. This is a big image, so I want to make sure it's not too far in the center or it'll just overlap too much. So by having it farther out, I can show more of the flower. Again, I'm going to do rainbow order, but in between each time when I stamp and rotate, I will cover my flower with one of my masks. So there I stamped, rotated, covered it with a mask, and now I can stamp with my next color. And I'll rotate it and cover it with a mask again. And I'll end up going around and doing the full rainbow. Now the reason I cut extra masks is that masks, if you stamp on them too much, the ink will end up seeping through. So I use this one mask like 4 times, and then I switched to a fresh mask because I didn't want my ink to seep through it. So again, I'll stamp, rotate, mask, stamp, rotate, mask. And before you'll know it, you have a full rainbow of flowers. Now this Wreath Builder stencil really works well with stamp layering too. This one has another layer to the flower, so I'll position it right over one of my flowers. I'll transfer that into the door of my MISTI, and then I can mask off my flower and stamp this layer too. Now I didn't want to go and find lighter colored inks for each of these flowers, so I went for the second generation for the details in the center of the flower. So here I'm going to mask this flower. I'll rotate it 1 notch, and then I'm going to ink up my stamp it off lightly onto scrap paper, then stamp it onto my project. That gives me a slightly lighter color. If it ends up being too light, you can repeat the process twice as I just did. So I'll do it again. I move my mask, rotate it a notch, ink up my stamp it off onto scrap paper first, that's what I'm doing here, then stamp it on my project. Once I completed all of the flowers, I added a little bit of soft color into the open areas of the flower with a very light color of Copic marker. Now I was careful not to touch the ink because this ink isn't a Copic friendly ink. Most inks aren't. And I didn't want to make it bleed, so I just quickly colored in the open areas. If I happen to touch the ink, it's okay. It really doesn't make a noticeable difference. But I just wanted some quick color in the open areas. I like how this card is completely different than the others. I added a "You're So Kind" sentiment to the center and put it on a 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 inch black note card. That "You're So Kind" sentiment is from the Gina K Designs You Get Me stamp set. I really like this stamp set. I like the sentiments that say "You're my person" and "You're so kind." And I'll use another one of these in a moment. Okay, my next example steps this up a little bit and creates a card that's bigger, with the wreath kind of off to the side. This time I'm starting with a 5 1/2 by 5 1/2 inch piece of white cardstock. And each time I will use this, it will hang out of my stencil, but I'll make sure that one corner always fits into the stencil. Sometimes I even have to tuck it so it hangs out of my MISTI as it is there on the right. So I have that one corner positioned over on the left. The one corner is in place, the rest are all hanging off, that's okay. I'm starting with my first flower towards the edge, and I will do the same thing. I'll stamp and rotate each time, and making sure that the same corner ends up tucked into a notch. So here I'll rotate it, tuck that one corner into a notch, and stamp it again. Then I will rotate it and stamp it again. It's okay that everything's hanging off. It doesn't matter. What I'll end up with is a wreath kind of in the top corner of this large piece. I'll end up trimming it down in the end, but this gives me an option of where I want to trim it down by starting with the big piece of cardstock. You just want to make sure that that same corner ends up in the stencil each time. Now for the next rotation or the next image that I'm going to stamp, I will mark that top corner so that I remember each time which one gets tucked in. Here I'm putting a little pencil mark in that corner. This time I'm stamping a leaf image, and every time I will stamp and rotate, making sure that one corner is positioned into my stencil each time. Notice I got to hang it outside of the MISTI sometimes. That's okay. It doesn't matter at all. You just want to make sure that your MISTI door is clean. Sometimes I get ink on my MISTI door, and that can transfer onto the paper. But you can see I had no problem stamping this. Okay, so again, I'm going to keep adding images and stamping them, making sure that one corner is always rotating a notch. Okay, after I formed my entire wreath, it was time to trim this panel down. And I just kept trimming till I was happy with it. I wanted a wreath kind of in the top corner. And I trimmed it down to be 4 by 5 1/4. And I'll add this to a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch note card. I stamped the "You're My Person" sentiment from the Gina K Designs You Get Me stamp set that I just showed you, and I added some gems. So this is a traditional 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card, and I like how the wreath is offset to the side. Okay, my last example shows how you can use the Wreath Builder stencils to create a card that has the corners stamped. So not necessarily a wreath, but just the corners. So I have a 4 by 4 piece in my stencil, and I'm positioning a flower up in the top corner. This time, instead of rotating one notch, I'll rotate it 2. So I'm just going to make a square. So I'll ink up the image again and stamp it. Here, watch, I'll rotate it 2 notches, 1, 2, and I'll stamp it in the other corner. And I'll end up with the images positioned perfectly in all 4 corners. Now I can add some leaf images in between and just continue to work my way around, each time rotating 2 notches instead of 1. So this shows you that you can create a kind of a frame with the images in the corners instead of a wreath if you want to. So after I stamped the outline images, I came in and stamped the additional layer images. The outline images, the colors that I used are fresh asparagus and tomato soup, and for the details I used jelly bean green and peach Bellini. Now I'm going in and quickly adding a little bit of light color with my Copic markers, and then I will gold heat emboss a sentiment in the center. That sentiment is from the Wreath Builder stamp set that I showed you at the beginning of the video. I added it to a 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 note card and added a few yellow gems. So there you have it, some fun ways to use these new products from Gina K. And a big shout out to Gina because these are brilliant. I was mind blown when I saw how these work, and I had so much fun playing with them. If you are interested in these products, they're linked below in my YouTube description. In the middle are a couple other videos that show similar ways to get the looks that I got today without using these tools. If you haven't done so, hit subscribe, and I hope to see you again soon. Have a great week.